Patzner. I'm the executive director of the Family Crisis Center, and the Family Crisis Center is actually an activity of Catholic Social Services. So we began back when a group here at CSS was getting calls from women who had nowhere else to turn, and so they began talking, and thus we were formed. So our shelter was purchased by the Dodge City Diocese, and they allow us to use it rent-free, and have for 32 years. Wow. Yeah, that makes me feel old. So that's how we started. We began with a crisis line, literally just an outreach, something for people to call into to get a little bit of support. Became very evident, so the house was purchased and renovated, and we started housing women and kids back, it was in August of 1981, we believe, somewhere in that time frame, and really have been going ever since. So we provide what we consider comprehensive services. So we provide not only the crisis line and shelter, but we also work out in outreach. So we go out into our 10-county area and bring those services to people that need us. Shelter's probably about 15% of what we do. Most people know us for the shelter. The majority of the work we do really is outside of there, and doing supportive services such as helping folks do applications for TANF, or helping get them leave time from work. Doing some of those things, helping them really assess what safety needs they have and what are the barriers and how to overcome those barriers. So we do a lot of work beyond just our office, so you won't see a lot of us in the office most of the time. We have a new venture now, a new program underneath our umbrella, which is the Del Hayden Memorial Child Advocacy Center. And that began developing about a year and a half ago, and we actually started seeing kids in November, and are already over 41 interviews. So since November to now, yeah, it scares me. That's the newest part of what we do, and it really does kind of mesh with the other side of us. So you'll hear us talk. We have the CAC side, the Child Advocacy side, and the DSVC side, which is the Domestic and Sexual Violence Center.
D.A. what?
DSVC, Domestic and Sexual Violence Center. And that's how we kind of delineate our two programs. They're very different. One is really governed by the Violence Against Women Act, so we do not share information. Everything is very, very confidential. The other side does share information. So we have this invisible iron curtain that comes down, so even amongst staff we don't discuss cases because we can't. So if we are working with someone on the domestic and sexual violence side and their child may have been sexually abused and is going for an interview, the only way we can talk with that side is to do a release form. So we literally have release forms going back and forth within our own building. So it's been interesting, but it's also been obviously a very needed program, and so far what we're looking at is cases moving through court up to 6 months faster than they had before. So it's not ideal yet, but we're getting there, so it's making a difference. So what we're going to talk about today is domestic violence, and I'm going to just go through kind of what domestic violence is. It's a very basic kind of understanding we're going to do today. I'm going to take you through a couple of exercises that will help you kind of grasp that within your own context, and then really talk about where do we go from there. What are some of the things that you guys can do in the context of the work that you're doing that would benefit survivors. So this is going to be a fairly informal presentation because you guys know some of this, and so I want to be able to go back and forth, and anything that I say that doesn't resonate or it maybe you don't understand, feel free to trip me up, yell something, but I want this to be more of a dialogue because I think that's going to actually serve you all better in the work that you're doing. And so that being said, we have to start with a definition. So what is you guys What's your understanding of what domestic violence is?
Well, from within my reach, it's emotional safety, physical safety, what else? Commitment safety, community safety. Well, I'm missing one. Is that it? The four?
There's 4.
There you go.
Yay!
See? And see, I forgot to bring candy bars. Usually see we do
I
Okay.
gave up sugar today.
Okay, see? Yes, ma'am.
When I think of domestic violence, that is very good what she said, but when I hear the word domestic violence, I think harm. I don't know why. And then I think what my big question is later on is the emotional part, or verbal. I want to see how much that plays into what we're going to be talking about. But anything that provides harm, anything that will do harm or harm that person or harm themselves. That's when I think of domestic violence.
Okay, that's, you're right. So, all of those things combined give us this definition, basically. It's a pattern of abusive behavior in any relationship that is used by one partner against another partner, okay? And it's used to exert power and control over someone. The key to this, again, is power and control, okay? So a one-time hit, while is detrimental, does not mean that it's a domestic violence situation, okay? So that's kind of important, especially now with our new laws that mandate batters intervention programming. You may know them as BIPs, but those assessments are for true battering, okay? So that's the piece that has to come into play here when we talk about domestic violence.
Big joke.
Can you hear it?
He had it locked, but he had his hand on it. He said, "I'm going to kill you," and he put the gun right here. And after I pooped and peed all over myself, shaking, he said, "Joke, it's locked." And then I knew I was dealing with a crazy.
Pat has been married to her husband, Bill, for over 45 years. Over the years, both she and her children experienced repeated physical and emotional abuse from Bill. We taped Pat on 2 different occasions, talking with a counselor from a battered women's shelter. 2 years ago, Pat left her husband and had come to this battered women's shelter. They had helped her to find an apartment, but after a few months, due to medical problems, Pat felt she could no longer live by herself and moved back in with her husband. As usual, at first things were okay, but later the abuse started all over again.
For the sake of my sanity, I've got to get out. He's got my brains like scrambled eggs. I don't know what I'm thinking. I don't know what I'm doing half the time. Walk out. How would you like to walk out of your house for a walk and forget where the hell you are and you don't know where you are? All I want is peace and quiet. Nobody harassing me. Nobody hitting me. Nobody punching me. Nobody twisting my arms. Nobody tripping me on the floor. It's been all my married life. I thought after I was married a while, he'll taper off, he'll change. He never changed. He not only beat me, he beat my children. He twisted their arms up behind their back. He dislocated their shoulders. And when he hit them on the ground, he kicked them.
About a month after this taping, Pat came to the shelter for battered women again. After she had been there a couple of weeks, we taped her again as she talked with her counselor.
My emotional state when I came here in '86 was that life wasn't worth living, that I would be better off dead. And I was thinking of ways that I could commit suicide without leaving a mess.
Pat related how in the early years of her marriage, she had separated from her husband 3 different times, but each time returned because of financial constraints.
The second time I left, same thing. Didn't have enough money to buy clothes, food, and pay the rent and get somebody to watch him. So again, he came to me and said, "Why are you doing this? I love you. You're the only thing in my life. I can't live without you." Again, I went back and said, things are going to be different. Right up until the time I came this time, things are going to be different. And my son Bill said to me, "Mom," when I was right there in the car, he said, "Mom, do you still think Dad's going to change?" I said, "No, I wouldn't be here if I thought it was going to change. Look how many years, and look how many years Patty I wasted by thinking he's going to change." I felt sorry for him, and I wanted to, like you said, nurture him and try to be kind and gentle and sweet to him, saying, in return, eventually, you will turn and be kind and gentle and sweet with me. But it got worse and worse and worse. And when I thought to myself, I'm not going to do it. I don't know how many years I've got to live, but I'm not going to live it this way. And I always told him, when things start going bad, one of these days when the kids are all grown and they've left, I'm leaving too. And he said, not thinking that I'm getting older and I'm going to get sick. I thought I was going to stay the same age, never looking at that side of it. You see, I thought the kids will grow up, they'll get married, they'll do whatever they want, and I'll go and do what I want, and I'll say bye. But it doesn't work that way. As they're growing up, you're getting older, you're getting grayer, you're getting sick. So you say, now what do you do and where do you go? But I am bound and determined. I am going to have peace. That's the uppermost, is peace and quiet.
But now you went back because of health problems,
Right.
and yet you're here again.
Yes. What has brought me back? Well, the first, like I said before, I didn't know I could come back until I called you. And you said, yes, there is space here, and yes, you can come back. Because I really do, Patty, believe with all my heart that if you hadn't let me come here, you would have either killed me or I would have killed you. Because I was taking to fighting back. It took a lot of years to fight back. And to realize he's been battering me all this time. When are you going to batter him? When are you going to hit him? When are you going to give him part of what he's given you? And I became so strong and so belligerent that I felt I could handle him. He's just little and thin now, where he was big and massive before. He's a little thin man that had no problem.
Finally, Pat related how she had applied for an apartment in a local senior housing complex.
About a week ago, I got an answer. They said I've been accepted. Everything is going fine over there. That when they have an apartment, I'll be the first one because I'm in the shelter.
Because you do have a life. And you,
Well, I'm beginning to realize it, because I never thought I had one. I never thought I had one. When I came here the last time, I was hopeless. Now, you have given me a little hope that I have got. But that's mainly what I want, is just to have a peaceful life.
Shortly after this last tape was shot, Pat went into the hospital for an operation on her back. A serious infection set in, and Pat was hospitalized in critical condition for 3 months. At the end of this hospitalization, Pat opted to go back to her home, even though her husband was also there. With the help of much in-home health care and therapy, she gradually regained some strength and some walking ability. Then, 1 month after she was home, her husband had a serious stroke and was placed in a nursing home. After 3 months, with money running out, Pat brought him back home and helped to take care of him there herself.
help you?
It was so big before that it all wrinkled. My goodness. Oh yeah. But you can't even, she goes right by the place, she won't stop getting messy, because she gets it when she feels like it. But when she needs prescriptions, He called and he's been right over there.
If he felt I couldn't take care of him because of my back. It isn't as though I didn't want him here.
Oh, yeah,
It
yeah,
was
the
because
son here,
I
the
couldn't
son here
do
wasn't
it.
even working, he could take care of you.
So, that's the reason he was in anger in the first place, was the fact I couldn't take care of
He
him.
didn't want to take
3
care of you.
doctors told me, don't do it. So that's why he was
Doctors
out.
tell her what to do, you don't tell nobody. She can't subtract, she can't add, she can't do nothing.
I wanted to get him well enough to where I could move over in the senior citizen home over in Park Forest. I thought if I got him well, he could live here. I would live away. My intentions were never to stay here. I was going to leave. And if everything pans out, I will eventually leave.
4 months after this last taping, Pat had a serious heart attack. She was resuscitated in the hospital, but lived only in semi-consciousness for 18 days and then died. Pat had recognized that the abuse was not going to stop, and while she made several plans and attempts to get away from the abuse, was not, for many reasons, financial, health-related, emotional, able to ever achieve a complete separation.
What'd you think of him first? What was your reaction to him?
And honestly,
It's okay.
Honestly.
We can talk about this.
he deserved it at the end because she never got out and then the poor woman died. You know, she tried several times, but honestly, he got everything. And then he was me. Even though he was disabled and she had that back operation, he didn't change. He still made her stupid, and she didn't feel good about herself. And oh, God, he got everything he deserved. But that's all. That's for me.
I like that. I like
But
that.
it made me mad. It made me like, you know. And then I was upset with her because, come on, try a little bit harder. Come on. But you know what? I think she'd already been kicked down enough. She did all she could do, and she didn't know where else to turn. And she did want hope, and she wanted to get better. But well,
The key to this is, if you hear, is, and we're going to talk about two things. But on one side, she made plans. There were several plans. They just never came to fruition for her. The other part of this, when you look at her response to him, it's very telling because she was justifying everything she was doing. So I talked to 3 doctors. I did this. And so you can see how incredibly unequal that relationship is, unbalanced. The other part of that is she never felt that she had a right to walk away. She was always, the plan always included making sure he was okay, and then she would take care of herself. So when we start thinking about the questions we ask, want to go back to this and start thinking about maybe we need to think about it a little bit differently. You know, it's not about just leave because she tried. It's not about obviously there's a problem with him, so get rid of him. It just doesn't pan out that easily. So keep that in mind when we're talking about So when we talk about domestic violence, we have to look at this as really components. So there's physical abuse, which everybody, you know, that's what everybody knows about. The hitting, the shoving, the kicking, that kind of stuff. The sexual abuse is unwanted sexual touch, sexual harassment, demeaning jokes, or lack of attention. Literally no contact whatsoever. And then the emotional abuse, and we started talking a little bit about that, but that's that name calling, the put downs, the things that are intangible, that makes a person feel less than who they are. And it's, you know, the emotional abuse is probably what does the most damage, but it's the least able to be acted upon. So I can go to law enforcement and say, I have a black eye, hit me. They'll go, okay. Mm-hmm. I can't go to law enforcement and say, he made me feel bad. Because they say, okay. You know, there's nothing that you can do with that. And so that's probably what does the most damage. You have economic abuse, which the programs that you guys are doing truly have an impact on the lives of women. We talk a lot about women. Yes, there are men who are abused, and we'll talk about that. But the transitional housing, the cash program, those kinds of things are having a huge impact on women's lives, and it's because it gives them power to walk away from this kind of abuse, you know? The other thing is the psychological, and there's, well, isn't psychological the same as emotional? No, psychological can be, their tactics, and we'll talk about tactics when we talk about the power and control wheel, but a tactic such as, today it's okay to make hamburger, tomorrow that's slop. Today, why don't you fix yourself up, make yourself look good? Tomorrow it's who are you seeing? It's changing the game constantly, or changing the rules to the game constantly, so you don't know where you stand. One day this is a great thing, the next day you try it and you're gonna get hit. So it's those kinds of psychological, it's really, it's warfare that's happening in that home. And so those are the things we really have to pay attention to. And it's used to, again, intimidate, manipulate, humiliate, isolate, frighten, terrorize, coerce, threaten, blame, hurt, injure, or wound somebody in any way, spiritually, physically, emotionally, sexually. That's the damage that's happening. It can happen regardless of race, age, sexual orientation, religion, gender. It affects all socioeconomic backgrounds, education levels. It occurs in both opposite sex and same-sex relationships. And it's not just marriage, so it's also dating and those who are living together or formerly living together. So these are, it runs the gamut. The statistics are, in Kansas, there's about 51% of Kansas women have experienced some form of domestic violence. Nationally, the statistics are 1 in 5 high school students will experience some form of dating violence before they graduate. 1 in 4, it's now 1 in 3. 1 in 3 girls will be sexually assaulted before the age of 18. 1 in 6 boys will be sexually assaulted before the age of 16 or 18. This is, I mean, the prevalence is there. You know, everybody, we go around and we try and figure what's the risk factor. How do we identify what the risk? If you are female, you are at risk for domestic violence. That's the nature of this. So understand that this happens all the time. Someone around you is probably either a victim or has experienced it through a parent or has a friend who has seen or experienced domestic violence. We're all impacted by this. Physical abuse, sexual abuse, these are all just kind of the modes that are used. Hitting, slapping, shoving, grabbing, pinching, hair pulling. We see a wide range of what is considered physical abuse. Even tickling. And I know that sounds crazy, but when you tickle to the point where someone can't breathe, they can't move, they can't get up, that's abusive. That's used to control. Okay, so those are some of the things we look at. Sexual abuse, the coercing or attempting to coerce sexual contact without consent, rape, attacks on the sexual parts of the body, forcing sex after physical violence seems to be growing, treating one in a sexually demeaning manner. We hear a lot of the jokes that are just hugely inappropriate, but they're a common everyday occurrence, and it makes someone feel like an object. They're no longer a whole human being, and it has a huge effect on them. The emotional abuse is undermining an individual's sense of self-worth or self-esteem. And again, the name calling, telling someone you're stupid. If you tell someone they're stupid long enough, they begin to believe it. Once they begin to believe it, they begin to act it. To change that takes superhuman power. I mean, it is a very, very, very long struggle for someone to understand that I'm not stupid. And that's the process we start the minute they come to us is, you are not stupid, you are a strong person, and it's something that's ongoing. The economic abuse, making someone financially dependent on you. Maybe he has all of the finances, he has all of access to the finances. She has no access. She may be working. She may be contributing, but has no access to any of the accounts. Or he may have, he may not be working. He may be making her work and then maybe targeting her at work so that she loses her job, so that again she becomes dependent on him. We see the giving an allowance. He says, here's $25 for the week. This is to buy groceries for the family of 3. You know, it's not possible, but you'd be amazed at how women can do these things, okay? This is also where you see women who have criminal charges, shoplifting, those kinds of misdemeanor cases that will then follow them for the rest of their life. So you've got a woman who had no options other than to steal that loaf of bread, and now society is going to hold her responsible for that loaf of bread, even though this is what's happening. Okay? The psychological abuse, again, the intimidation, the threats. You and I may not see the threat. We see this a lot in court. You go to court and he walks in, she starts to shake, and we go, what happened? Nothing happened. It could just simply be a look. A look that she knows means, I will get you when we're done here. It's that simple. It's that ingrained. You and I may not be able to discern that, but we know it going in, that those unseen threats are going to make her act in a certain way in court. They're going to make her either talk or not talk, or simply run. And that happens more often than not. This destruction of property, destruction of pets, this is where we see the prevalence of pet abuse in a domestic violence home. They use that to hurt the children, to keep the children quiet. If you don't do this, the dog dies. Those kinds of things. Then we also talk about isolation, keeping this person from having access to support. If you take away all of the support system, the only person that's left to hang on to is the abuser, okay? So this is the damage that's happening, okay? You have, I gave you guys a bunch of wheels, and we'll make those available to everybody. What I want you to look at is the first two. You have, this is called the power and control wheel. What I have up here is the nonviolence wheel. So when you look at the two of them, it shows you how different they are. The equality wheel or the nonviolence wheel, we have nonviolence on this one. So the nonviolence wheel shows what a relationship should be. It's fairness. It's about negotiating. It's about respect. It's about trust. It's about being honest and accountable. It's about being responsible in your parenting and sharing responsibility in everything. Okay? So put that with the nonviolent or the violence wheel or the power and control wheel. Okay? So you have the intimidation. Okay? A look, a gesture, anything that is going to make someone afraid. That's what this part is. Okay? The using emotional abuse, we've talked about what that is. Isolation, taking those support systems away, moving someone out into the country. You know, oh, I want you to be free out in the country, this is the way to go. Well, what that does is law enforcement response is lengthened. No one hears when someone screams because you don't have neighbors. So it's a tactic, it's an isolation tactic. Every time we go to your mom's, we get into a fight, so don't want to go to your mom's anymore. You know, taking away all of those things so that the only person left is that abuser. Minimizing, denying, and blaming. You may have an explosion, a huge, horrific, violent explosion. She has a black eye, and he says to her, "What happened to you?" And in her head, she's going, "Well, you hit me." And he says, I just don't know what happened to you. It makes you crazy because you start thinking, maybe he didn't hit me. maybe this was something I did. And then all of a sudden, you go to the mirror to try and prove to yourself that you have this black eye. It's that kind of minimizing or denying that really plays a huge part in a person's psyche, you know, or the blaming. If you wouldn't have done this, I wouldn't have had to do this. You know, if you would have made dinner on time, if you would have cleaned the house up, if you would have taken care of the kids, I wouldn't have had to hit you. So it's all her fault, okay? Using the children, passing messages with the kids, or using the kids to actually participate in the violence. We had one severe case where the two children were forced to sit on mom's legs as dad raped her. That has a huge effect on those children, okay? It also has a huge effect on that mom because her whole being is about protecting those kids. And she can't do it in that instance. So she will do other things, and we'll talk about that. Kids used in visitation. You know, we talk about, well, if she will just leave. Well, if there are kids, there's no true just leaving because there's going to be visitation. There's going to be something to continue that contact. And so using those tactics to pass messages back and forth and those kinds of things, that's what's really doing the damage with those kids. Using the male privilege, I'm the king of the castle, you're the servant kind of thing. And then the economic abuse we've talked about. This is the power. I want you to close your eyes, okay? And I want you to picture yourself with someone that you love and someone that you trust, okay? And I'm going to walk you through kind of a typical scenario. So I'm going to throw you back a little bit, and I'm going to throw you back to high school, okay? And you guys just met, and we're going to talk about this as you as the female are the victim and the male is the abuser, but understand it can be flipped, okay? So we're high school, and he says, I want to walk you to your locker. And you think, oh my gosh, that's so cool. And so he walks you to your locker, and then he walks you to your next class, right? Then he picks you up there, and he walks you back to your locker, and then he walks you to your next class. How you feeling? Okay?
Good.
Okay. Okay. Feel good. This is great. Okay. So
Finally.
then he picks you up at your class, walks you to your next class, to your locker, and then to the next class. And then he picks you up there, walks to your locker, and walks to your next class. And this goes on all the time. So how you feeling now?
Claustrophobic.
Yeah.
I can do it myself.
Okay. Okay. So a little iffy, but things are okay, right?
Right.
Okay. So now you guys have been dating for 6 months, and he says, "Hey, I've got tickets to a concert. I'll pick you up at 7." And you go, "Cool." Okay. So 7 o'clock comes, and he shows up, and you're not ready, right? And he says, "Are you stupid? Can't you tell time? I told you I'd be here at 7. What are you, an ignorant? How you feeling?"
Oh, bad.
Okay. So he said he'd be there at 7. You weren't ready. Whose fault is this? Right? Okay. So now we move on. Okay. I'm going to jump you ahead now. You're in college. Woohoo! You graduated. So you're in college, and you're at the student union, and you see a male classmate, and you go and you talk to him about an assignment. Okay. You look over, and your boyfriend has his fist clenched. Okay? So you end your conversation, you come back, and he says, are you sleeping with him? How you feeling right now?
Pissed.
How I feel about it today
Uh-huh.
is different than how I would have felt about it back then.
Uh-huh. But is there a tinge of thinking, I knew he was jealous. I shouldn't have gone and talked to this guy. That little piece there?
Or even that compliment. Oh, he's jealous. I must be extra special.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? So then he starts shoving. He does the poking you in the chest. Don't ever do it again. Okay? At that point, what are your options? Okay?
What'd you say, Patty? What'd you say?
She said leave.
Leave? Okay,
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 what-
what would be my option?
Don't do it again.
Don't do it again. Any other options there?
This probably isn't the one I'd choose, but I would fight. I would start arguing and yelling and fighting.
Okay? It's an option.
Right, right.
It's an option. So we're going to take the path of least resistance and we're going to say, okay, I knew I was wrong. My fault. We move on. Right? Okay? Okay. So now let's move you ahead a lot. You guys have gotten married. Okay? You've been together forever. You guys got married. You both have jobs. You come home early and you start dinner and you burn it. Okay? I've done it many times.
Wouldn't be the first time.
And he comes in and he says, I work 6 days a week to put food on the table and you burn it? Are you crazy? What are you trying to do to me? Are you trying to kill me?
Oh, man.
Now, where'd you go?
Yeah,
And-
that would be what I was
Now, go into the
That is
violent
an
side. Remember, this is
exaggeration.
recorded.
I go, well, I hope, I don't know. I'd run to the bathroom or bedroom and start crying. But I hope I don't do that. I hope I'm mad enough to say, no, I understand what you're saying and I'm sorry, but I can fix you something really quick and let's, just to get dinner over with or something. I don't know. But
So, I want to talk about that. So, you would either cry or you would justify.
I hope I don't cry. I hope
Okay,
I just let him
okay,
have it.
but okay. So let's say that we justify. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to burn it. I'll fix you something else.
Right.
What does that do?
It's my fault again.
Put the blame back on you, right, Rhonda? Right? You, yeah, you.
My fault.
My fault.
Okay.
Oh, I hate that.
Do you see that? Okay. So in this instance, I'm going to take you further, and he grabs the back of your head, shoves it in the plate of food. Okay.
Oh, he shoves my.
Okay.
Oh.
Now, what I want you to think about is what's led up to this. Okay? We started off with very subtle things. Spending time together. Maybe there was, I don't like your hair, I want you to change the hair. Maybe it's, I don't like the way you're dressing, I want you to dress this way. Little subtle things to gain control. So when the big stuff starts happening, you're already groomed. You're there. You know that the only way to exist is by what he's telling you. So when the big stuff starts happening, so when the face in the plate happens, your response is, it's my fault. Right? So then, after this explosion happens, he says, I'm so sorry. It'll never happen again. Had a bad day at work. The boss is riding me, and you burned dinner. If you wouldn't have burned dinner, I wouldn't have had to hit you. Right? So how are we now?
Not his fault. Had a bad day.
Had a bad day. Okay? Now, let's throw kids in the mix. Okay? You got 2 kids. They're both home with the flu. Okay? So obviously you're home. He's at work. You haven't cleaned the house. You haven't probably taken care of yourself. You've just been doing nothing but taking care of the kids. Okay? He walks in and he says, why is the house a mess? What'd you do all day? Can't you do anything? What are you, lazy?
What happened to dinner?
And then he goes after the kids because they're crying. Okay? And he says, shut them up or I will. Now what are you doing? What's your head doing?
Protecting the children.
Mm-hmm. So, when someone says, why didn't you just leave? What's the response to that?
She couldn't.
Okay. So let me walk you through what's a better response. Instead of saying, why doesn't she just leave? We should start asking, why doesn't he stop hitting? It's about accountability. We cannot hold a victim accountable for someone else's behavior. This happens in all of the systems we work in. DCF, when a file is open on a child, it's in the mother's name. It's never in the father's name. Who is held accountable for that child? The mother. In law enforcement, okay, if something happens to the children, the mother is held accountable. Maybe the father is going to be charged with something, but the mother is held accountable for the safety of the kids. Failure to protect. Okay? We have to start asking, why doesn't he stop hitting? Okay? These are the things that really are going to change how we truly do this work. If we are continually saying, why doesn't she just leave? We will continually help batterers continue to batter. And we will see more and more victims. When we're in the 900s every year, there's a problem. When our numbers, our crisis line numbers, we're over 2,000 a year. We have to start changing the conversation. So we have to start thinking about this in terms of what can we as a community do to change the options for a survivor. So, okay, let's go back to the woman, you guys, and the 2 kids. Let's say, for instance, you say, I'm done, I'm out of there, okay? So you come into shelter, okay? Hopefully, we'll have a bed for you, okay? Right now, we're full. I think we have a crib and a blow-up mattress right now that's available, okay? So you're going to be in a house with lots and lots of kids and lots of adults. And that may or may not be good for you, okay? But that's your option. So you come in and you can stay for as long as you need to, okay? Now, sanity-wise, you're going to want out of there as quickly as possible, okay? Staff spend 8 hours a day there, and they want out as quickly as possible, okay? So it's not a stress-free environment, okay? So that's an option. You come in, and now what we want you to do is we want you to start getting an income. How are you going to do that?
Get a job.
Okay? Get a job. In Barton County right now, how easy is that? Okay? Now, yes, you can probably get a minimum wage job. Okay?
Right.
But at that minimum wage job, you're probably not going to get over 30 hours. There's not going to be any benefits. So now what do? Apply for assistance, right? Mm-hmm. Okay, so I'm going to go and my first thing is I'm going to apply for TANF dollars. Before my application is even considered, I have to look for 30 jobs. I have to do that before they'll even look at my application. And they have 45 days, okay? So now what? Shelter's taking care of me right now. We got food coming in, not paying anything. Kids need stuff at school. Right? How are we going to do that? I can tell you we don't have it. Shelter doesn't have it.
Salvation Army.
That's what I was going to say.
Go to Salvation Army. Guess what? They no longer have any backpacks because they've given them out. So they don't have any left.
They have extra school supplies though.
I know, but
yeah, you're right.
But this is the reality is,
right, they've already given it.
We've got people being turned away every day.
Right.
So I submit to you that staying is actually safer. Because 1, you're not homeless. 2, you got something coming in terms of resources. And 3, you know what's happening. You know that, okay, I'm going to get hit. I have to do these things, but I can care for my kids. They're going to have a roof over their head, and they're going to have food in their stomachs. Right? So what we have to start doing as a community is we have to look at what Catholic Social Services is doing. Look at transitional housing. How do we make this easier for folks? we have to make sure that we have jobs. We have to have jobs that have a living wage, not a minimum wage, living wage. We have to have benefits, you know. Yes, I'm talking about some pretty big global thinking here. We also have to have a system in place that does hold the perpetrator accountable. Once an act has happened and law enforcement is called, that should be something that goes through the court system, whether the survivor participates or not. There has to be accountability. And it can't be contingent upon the survivor, because when we make everything her responsibility, she no longer has options. Because it's all about what he's about to do. Okay? So that's the global thinking of this. So let's talk a little bit about, again, all of the whys they stay. Okay? Did you do a research look at the rent?
Fair market rent.
Mm-hmm. Where are we at?
A person needs to make $10.38 in Barton County to rent a 2-bedroom apartment, and
Okay.
it's I think $5 something a month.
Yeah, $550. Yeah. So, and that's probably a 2-bedroom that may or may not have working windows, that may or may not have electricity, may or may not have floors that are actually
Well,
there.
the problem too, you have to, with the transitional housing, they have to have some sort of job because they have to pay their utilities.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Unless the landlord will keep them in their name, and landlords just don't do that.
And all
Yeah.
deposits and everything.
You got the deposits then, and
And
if
it'll pay for that.
it will, okay. So there's, but how many slots do you have?
17.
Okay.
And Barton County, we probably have about 10 right now.
Okay. So when those 10, and trust me when I tell you, those 10 will get filled real quick. Then what? You know?
Waiting list.
Exactly. So you've got this a housing. We have a housing problem. We have a
Yeah.
housing crisis.
We have people ready to put in housing in Finney County and no houses that are
Oh, in
within the fair
Gordon.
market rent that we can't pay more than HUD will allow.
Mm-hmm.
So now we're appealing to HUD for that.
Yeah. So this is, I mean, this is not just a small issue. This is a big issue. You know. But again, we're holding her accountable for this. Okay. So so maybe she finds a house. Maybe she's got a house. Now we got to deal with childcare. How much is childcare right now?
$400.
Okay. So if you have a job, more than likely it's minimum wage. More than likely you have some kind of assistance to manage your home. And now you got to figure out childcare. Okay. Now, if you can't figure out childcare and you have a 12-year-old staying at home, what's going to happen?
SRS is going to be called DCF.
Okay? Okay, so what happens if he decides to file for custody? He says, she's a bad mom. Look, she can't even work at a decent job. She can't take care of my kids. Now what she's got to do? She's got to find a lawyer. Now, we have a great relationship with Kansas Legal Services, and they work with us a lot, and they do some free representation. That's a good thing. But they also have one attorney right now. So they can't take every case. So that leaves her either representing herself in court, which is a very, very scary thing, or having to figure out how to come up with $1,500 just to have an attorney say, I'll represent you. It'll be more than that, but that's just up front.
Are they able to go to the courthouse and ask for help?
They can go to the courthouse and ask for,
Like a pro bono attorney?
they can ask. We don't have many around here. Barton County, I think, has one. So that's why you send them to us, because we have access. But anyway, to go beyond that, clerks aren't allowed to give information or assist or give advice. So what you're probably going to get is, if you come in and say, I don't have money for an attorney, you may get some paperwork to file. So you can file what's called pro se without an attorney. that is a wonderful thing to have those, and we have access to those forms. But the next step is to take it into court where you are held to the same standard as an attorney. So if you don't understand the questions to ask, if you don't understand how to cross-examine someone, you're still not getting what you need, okay? So maybe then these kids end up with, in the custody of dad, and she has to now start paying child support. And she may or may not get visitation, okay? So the other parts of this, then let's think about you now have you have a lawyer, you have a house, you have some child care, and now what about food? Okay, you got food stamps. Food stamps will get someone about 2/3 of the way through the month now, if they budget really well. Okay, so then they get to go to the food bank, right?
4 times a year.
So that's not an option. Okay, and why do we have this? This is the next question. I'm being esoteric now. Why do we all have limits on our services?
Because others before abused the service, or they didn't use it properly,
Or we have to be
Or-
able to
or
sustain
yeah, well,
We don't have
Limited
enough.
resource.
we don't have enough. Yeah, there you go.
Well, you have 2 reasons. 1, so people won't abuse it, and 2, because we don't have enough.
Well, there you go.
You know?
Enough.
And people abusing it is really not the issue. Now that's a buzzword because that makes people feel better because we have to limit. But we don't have money. We don't have the stuff that we used to have. We are all in an economic crunch, and where does that hit the worst?
those neat.
Those in need. So those of us who provide for those in need have little or nothing left in the pot, right? So these are all the things to think about when we say, why didn't you just leave? So when we finally start having the discussion about why doesn't he stop hitting, we can then turn to, wouldn't it be cool if he were removed, there were a no contact order, he were prosecuted, and was ordered to pay child support? What would that change?
She used
It
to have
would-
a house. She used to
Would
have a
it?
house.
Yeah. Would it force her to get a house, like do the other services then?
No, because
Okay.
she'd have a house.
Okay, sure. Okay.
She'd have a house. She'd have income coming in to be able to take care of the kids. She'd have probably insurance if he has insurance, because 9 times out of 10, when there are children and there's all kinds of things, they order that he maintain insurance. So it changes the landscape for her. And then maybe she can go back and get her education. And maybe then she can look at not just a minimum wage job, but a real job. And maybe then she'll start seeing herself as a true person instead of the one responsible for what he did. Does that make sense? That's what we have to change. That's the dynamic that we have to change. And I went way off this slide, just so you know. But again, this is all of the stuff that is faced by women, men also, who are battered, when they want to leave. The other part of this is when people say that they just don't leave, they want to stay. What I can tell you is across the state of Kansas right now, almost every shelter is full. So people are leaving. They just have to be able to sustain leaving. It has to be feasible to leave, right?
And how many can you house at the crisis center?
We
Or are you
actually
full?
we are full.
You are full.
We have 16 beds that are true beds, and then we have 2 blow-up mattresses. So, and 1, 2, 3 of those beds are cribs. So, we really can't have an adult in those. It's frowned upon. So it is. We have 3 bedrooms, and then we have what we call the overflow room. The overflow room was this wonderful room that we were going to use for group and to be able to, you know, have some alone time, and it's a bedroom. So it actually, we have it with a pull-out couch and a pull-out chair, and the pull-out couch and chair is, yeah, it's a bedroom. That's us. And then we've got, I know Garden City, last time I talked with them, and I think they're close to the same. I think they're a little bit bigger than we are. They were full. Dodge City is full, because they keep calling and saying, hey, Laura, we have someone, and, you know, and so we have these conversations across the state about how can we help each other. There's no space. So, yeah, that's a very scary thing.
What do you do in the small communities where, I mean, to my knowledge, we don't even have a shelter in Hodgman County, so what do you do? Do they have to go to Dodge
Yeah.
or something?
We have, in the state of Kansas, we've kind of, as programs, divided up the state a little bit. It's very arbitrary. But we have, our area is 10 counties. Hodgman is Dodge, and they have a wonderful program there. But what we do is anyone who's needing emergency shelter, which is a very, very short term, 2-3 days. We may house them in a motel. We have contacts with all of our hotels in all of our different communities to provide just some time to get away and put things in place. Maybe they need to file a restraining order, maybe, you know, those kinds of things. If they need more long-term shelter or more comprehensive shelter, then they come up to here, or we refer them to another program that's close. So it's not feasible. You know, Hodgman County could not sustain a shelter. So at one point people started talking about it. Wouldn't it be nice to have a shelter in every community? Well, what I can tell you is it's not just like a house. So you don't have just this house. You have a house, plus you have the utilities, plus then you have to have food, plus you have to have staffing, plus you have to have security, plus so it goes beyond what is feasible for a community to do.
Will someone take them there if they, I mean, I'm thinking of someone without a car or whatever, you know, how do you get there if you, okay.
Yeah, with shelters and with programs, when we say we provide comprehensive services, that's part of it. So in our area, say we go clear down to Coldwater. So if we have someone in Coldwater who is needing our services, we go to them. If they need to come into shelter, we'll talk to them about what's close and help them navigate that. If they're coming up here to our shelter in Bend, we're going to either talk with them and get them here by our own transportation, or we use law enforcement sometimes to do a county-to-county transfer. So all programs do something to provide transportation.
I know most police forces know which shelters.
Yeah, most of them know.
Like they would know in Jetmore.
Where
to go
to
to.
take somebody, okay.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's a wonderful service, but someday you guys will have to I'll just have to give you a tour of the shelter and you'll see why that's not ideal. Shelter living is true communal living, and it's a wonderful sense of community, but you want your own space. You know, you need to have your own space to breathe, and breathing doesn't happen a lot at the shelter. So, okay, so again, we've talked a lot about why people stay. We talk about the other parts of it are the protective pieces. If law enforcement's not making arrests, it's not really safe. You are not going to get what you need beyond where you're at. So if they're not making arrests, if they're holding you accountable, then what's the point of leaving? Because you're still not going to be safe. And you have to go through all of the other things. The other parts of it are courts dismissing charges because the survivor won't testify or won't cooperate. Again, holding her accountable for those charges. Doctors ignoring abuse. This is a huge issue, and we try and get addressed. I believe very strongly in universal screening. I believe every medical personnel should ask if you are safe in your own home, if you feel safe with your partner. Those are the screening questions that should be asked every time. But that's not happening. And so again, the systems have put a survivor at risk, which again is not the way we need to be doing things. So the other parts of this are a little bit freaky in terms of, you know, in Barton County we have a very strong drug culture. And so when we work with women, not only are we working with the battering and working on some of those issues, but maybe we are working on an addiction issue too. So when we look at someone who may be using drugs, our immediate response is, well, she's using. We don't think about the battering. We don't think about the domestic violence. We automatically go to, she's using, something's wrong with her, it's a problem, that's on her, right? So here's the thing that I will tell you. In domestic violence situations, in these relationships, sometimes the drug use is an escape. If I can use, I'm safe in my own head. Sometimes it's part of the abuse. If he is using, he will force her to use. He will force her to use a lot, and then the addiction starts. From there, you have a different kind of addiction that's happening. It's a psychological addiction to the drug as well as a physical addiction to the drug. And so instead of us saying, well, she's using, there's nothing we can do for her, what we really have to do is say, how is these two issues combining, and when we pull them apart, where do we address? Because if you take away the battering, you take away the need to medicate, to self-medicate. So then you can start giving healthy coping skills, and it's a different kind of treatment, so to speak. Not saying that they don't need treatment, but it's an underlying piece of the battering. And if the battering is not taken care of, the addiction will remain. Okay? In our community, if someone is using, they're a bad person. There is no distinction. If you walk into some place and say, I am an addict and I am being abused, what is the response you will get?
Say that again?
You earned it. Or you deserve
okay.
you.
If you walk into some place and say, I am an addict and I am being abused, what's the response you'll get?
It's your fault.
Probably all that's heard is I am an addict. The rest of it they may not even hear.
And we already, in our mind, we've already said, yeah, that's true. You've
already moved them on.
We've labeled them too, probably.
Yeah, not my stuff. I
Yeah.
don't do drug and alcohol. You're out of here. So then, if you have someone who comes in who is an addict and has mental health issues and is being battered, what do we do?
Refer him to the
What a
center.
mess.
I went to say the center, but I don't know if that's right.
Well, and you can, but that's a long-term solution
Right,
to a
right.
very short-term problem.
Right.
Short-term problem is I am not safe. We have to, safety is the key. That's what we have to do. If we don't provide safety, we can't address anything else. You cannot address a bipolar situation. If you have someone who has been diagnosed bipolar, you take away the abuse, and they need to be reassessed because that bipolar may not have been true bipolar. It may have been the trauma from the abuse. You have all of these overlying things that are happening with a very simple response from the community. That's not what I do. You're too bad for me to help. So what's the alternative? The alternative is I stay in the house where I have a roof over my head. I get beat up, but I have food on the table. Okay? Any questions about all this? And you guys have all these in your handouts, and we've kind of talked around them. But what are you thinking? Yes, ma'am.
My first thing is, what is the percentage of, okay, you turn the coin over and they're going to stay because they need that roof over their head, all this. But what about, I don't want to attend their funeral. I mean, I don't want the kids to be, I want, like, I'm thinking back in my mind, I know okay, two questions. What's the biggest percentage of people staying? And we know why they don't get out and why they are staying, but what is that percentage? And then when there is abuse, how many, everybody knows if there's one type of abuse, there's several, but when does it, like I said, I don't want to go to their funeral. I don't want to attend and right now I just want to reach out and take them out of there. That's my first response, but after hearing everything, maybe they do need to, but yet I don't want to read their obituary in the paper.
Right. So I'm in the same boat you are. I've been to funerals of clients. I don't want to ever do it again, but I know I will. And so what we have to start doing is changing the landscape. We have to start looking at how do we make a community safe enough for someone to say, even though it's going to be tough, I'm leaving. That's what we have to start doing. Now, that's a long-term piece of work. Okay, that's something that we have started and stopped and started and stopped and started, and that's an ongoing piece of this. So, in terms of survivors and leaving, it takes a survivor 7 to 8 times before they leave for good to try. And what that is we talk process. A process for someone to actually leave. You have to, one, start believing in yourself, which is very difficult. You have to get the knowledge of what's available. What are the community resources? Then you have to get the guts, okay? You have to have the courage, because this is a buy your bootstraps kind of deal. And then you have to have the education. This is not your fault. This is who is responsible kind of stuff. So it takes a very long time for all of that to solidify. They may start with a call to us, and we start having a conversation about what's available in your community. We may then get another call, and they say, I want to meet, and maybe we meet with them one time. Then they may test us a little bit, and they may try calling at odd hours to make sure we're truly there 24 hours a day. And it's that kind of process that they have to go through just to feel safe enough. We all do it. If I'm buying a car, I'm checking the car out. I'm going to look at the car. I'm going to kick a tire, even though I don't know why I kick a tire. It's just, you kick a tire. I'm going to have somebody look at it for me. Those are the kinds of things we do. It's no different. People want to know that when they put their life in somebody's hand, that they can trust that. So that process has to happen. If that process can happen and we start doing true work in the community, that's what converges to make someone safer. That's what ultimately brings people to an end that is not an obituary, and we've had many of those. There's been far too many of those here in Barton County and across the state. We will continue to see women who are killed, men who are killed because of domestic violence, until we start doing true prevention. Oh, that's the other soapbox. So true prevention is not teaching women how to be safe going to their car. Okay? That's not prevention. That's delaying intervention. That's all that is. And so what we have to start doing is we have to start talking about who is doing the violence and why is that violence happening and what are the attitudes that are creating that, because that's truly what we have to change in order for this stuff to be condensed to a one page. When I can finally say, why doesn't she just leave? Well, it's just a matter of time, give her a moment, and then we're there. Or when I can say we have enough bed space so that all anybody has to do is call us and they're in. Prevention has to start with 3-year-olds, 2-year-olds, teaching them how to change that attitude. And it has to come from the parents, because that's who solidifies that attitude. So that's the piece of work that 1 is not funded, 2 is not understood, and 3 is just really hard to do. So that's what we have to really focus on. Yes, ma'am.
This is my soapbox.
Okay.
And that's where this Marriage for Keeps steps in.
That's where we're working with parents. That's where we're working with what is a healthy relationship. That's where we go back to the teenage girl that the guy opens the doors and say, "Why aren't you ready?"
Mm-hmm.
She shuts the door and say, "What a jerk!"
Yeah.
And that's what we're looking for. That's the kind of prevention where if what she sees, how mom and dad treat each other, I'm not putting up with that, and it stops there. It never even gets started.
So we're going to talk a little bit about now systems, and I'm going to do this real quick so that I can start this. So this is my story about the slide. I don't know if you can see it. It's a Far Side thing, but it's got a little dog that's napping. He basically bit the ankle-ish area of, Goliath or Godzilla. And you've got a sign that's falling over that says, "Beware of the dog." This is what it feels like to do systems work. We are the dog. And so I got this, oh gosh, probably 20 years ago. And this has been on a bulletin board of mine wherever I've been. So this is what true systems work look like. Just so you know. So when we talk about systems, just so you know, systems are anything that has rules and regulations put in place. So we are also a system. The shelter, the Family Crisis Center is a system. There are things that have to be done in order for you to gain access to what we have. So each system works to meet the needs of its system. Each system answers to a hierarchy within its own system, and each system communicates, and yes, sometimes is in parentheses, because not all systems communicate within its own system. And then each system defines success based on the criteria set forth by its system, okay? So those are all the things to think about when we think about, well, all of this stuff is available for a woman when they are leaving. So we've got all these systems are out there. So this is how it looks. So what I want, this next slide that we're going to do, it's a little video, and I want you to pay very, very close attention because you're going to see a lot of writing. It's very, very short, and then we'll talk about it. I think.
All right, your turn, Portia. Come on, guys.
Mom, can we play till I win?
It's gonna be okay.
Audrey, it's been so crazy around here.
Girl, what did he do now?
Girl, I did it. I called the police on his ass and they took him out of here.
Oh my goodness. Mom, I got into the band. Miss Peter said I'm good enough to play the violin.
Mommy's so proud of you. I just want you to know that. I knew you could do it.
Hey, what do you think we should do for Mom's birthday? How about a surprise party? That'd be a great one. Mom, when is Dad coming back? I hope he's here for Christmas.
Girl, are you ready to go?
Baby, you know I didn't mean to do that. You know how much you and the kids mean to me. What can I do to make you...
No. Calvin, I've heard it too many times before.
Mom, those people are at the door again.
Oh. All right, just tell them I'll be down there. Just go downstairs and wait. I'm on the way.
What did you do? Why these people tell me I can't see my kids? Oh, you're gonna pay for this. Wait, you listening to me?
Mom, can I have a friend over tomorrow?
Portia, I don't know, okay?
But Mom...
I'm very busy.
Dear, I got to have a friend over last week.
Ms. Williams, I'm calling to inform you that you're past due on your phone bill. Would you be able to make a payment by the 30th?
I don't know. I really don't know. Hey. Don't cry. Hush. Listen, those kids don't know anything about you. You are a wonderful child. You are a beautiful girl.
Hey, Mom, Pastor Boy called. He wants to know if we can sing at church. I told him we will.
But Daryl, oh.
Mom, don't forget our basketball practice after school.
I won't forget, Portia. I would never forget. When is it?
Mom, I don't feel good.
You don't feel good like what?
Don't hang up. Just let me tell you. Hey, the last time I talked to you, I was just really upset. Let's just work this thing out.
Calvin, no. It doesn't work like that, okay? Audrey, I do not know what I'm going to do. Girl, they are evicting me. I mean, I won't have a place to live. Girl, what am I supposed to tell my kids?
I know y'all miss me, right? Is Mom take good care of y'all? Now, you know I'm gonna be home as soon as I can, but it's up to your mom.
Mom, when is Dad coming home?
I don't think Dad will be coming back home, honey.
He wants to come home, but he says he won't let him.
Oh, baby.
Mom, I aced my spelling test. Can we go shopping? Mom, can you tell Jerry to get out of my space? She started it. Did not. Did too. Stop it.
Okay, so did you see that last, the last slide where it's the case note?
Right.
So what happens is every system places what they need onto this victim. So law enforcement says you have to do this, 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 and this. DCF may say you need to do this, 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 and this, okay? But DCF and law enforcement, they're not the same thing. So you've just added on top. And then you've got well-meaning friends who want to cheer you up and throw a party. Okay, it's the last thing you need. And you've got the kids who are wanting to do something. And you've got the schools. And you've got all of these systems dictating what you want to do. Now, we've been talking a little bit about burnout. When you get to a place of when you are so completely overwhelmed, what is your response to someone? Yeah.
Rebel.
So
ignore.
Imagine when a woman who has just left an abuser, who has all of these systems now coming in saying you will, you will, you will, and at some point you shut down and you say, don't, I'm done. When this is an actual case, this caseworker wrote she became increasingly uncooperative. Kids were yanked. Okay? She was not uncooperative, she was overwhelmed. And that's what we have to really pay attention to. And I think that by and large, our folks here, and the ones that we work with, they get that. But I think that sometimes we forget and we put the needs of the system above what the needs of that survivor are. And that's what creates some of the problems for that victim. So this is the stuff about how do we help someone. So in the classes you're doing or in the work that you're doing, it all starts with a conversation, and this is how we have to start it. One is, it's not your fault. That is the most important thing that someone needs to hear. Because up to this point, especially if you are the first person they've disclosed to, they have been told it's their fault. So they have to hear it, and they're not going to believe you. And they're going to think you're stupid, and they're going to think that there's something wrong with you. But we have to say it, and we have to say it over and over again until they start hearing it and then believing it. The other thing is, I'm here to listen. Again, you have to open yourself up. They need to be able to start to trust. And then it's, I'm sorry it happened. Never do you want to say something like, wow, I understand how that feels. Because you don't. Even if something similar has happened to you, it's a very different thing. And so all we can do is say, I'm sorry it happened to you, and I want to help in any way that I can, okay? And so this is then during the conversation, okay? So again, that first conversation is crucial. It's really important to listen, and then you have to believe, okay? Those two go hand in hand. Listening meaning you can't be doing your grocery list, okay? And that's when I know I'm completely gone, is when I can't spend the time that I should with a client. That means that I'm not good for them, and I'm not useful to them. I shouldn't be there. So think about that, okay, before you start this conversation. And two, it's one of the most important things to actually say, I believe you. because there are a lot of folks saying, this can't be happening. You're making this up. It's not that bad. So when we say we believe, that's where it starts to transition for them. Validate the feelings. You know, you heard in that the Just to Have a Peaceful Life video that she actually had tried or contemplated killing him. That's a very normal thing. And we hear all kinds of different ways, from poisoning, from thinking about a knife, from withholding medication. It's part of that response. We have to validate, not that you want to kill somebody, but that you got so overwhelmed or that this was so bad. Validate those feelings, because no one has up to this point. And then the fear, you know, that fear of, we talk about, and these guys are learning this today, but we talk a lot about, we ask people to take a step off a cliff when they come into us. You know, we're asking them to walk off of what is known into what is unknown. And I can't promise you that there's going to be a safety net there. All I can promise you is that if you're going over, I'm going over with you. That's all I can do. So we're literally asking people to take a step off the cliff. Assure that they are not the cause. This is not your fault. Again, it's that re-emphasizing. And also that no one deserves this. That's really, really important. There's nothing that you can do that would cause someone to become abusive. We talk about, you know, I don't have little buttons on my chest that you can poke and then automatically I respond this way. You can't, you know, it's, if you call me every name in the book, you tell me I'm ugly, you tell me I'm worthless, you tell me that I'm a bad mother, that's on you. When I choose to hit you, that's on me. It's my responsibility. So we have to really help them see that they are not the cause and they are not responsible for his behavior. And again, if you've been working with someone and they just keep cycling back to that abuse, never ever say, when are you going to get over this? Okay? Remember that it's process. And so we're working with folks 5, 6, 7, sometimes 10 years. Because it is such an ingrained process that doesn't go away easy. So you see little steps forward, and you see, you know, you celebrate those, but know that they may go backwards. So it's just about, it's okay to be where you're at that time, and I'm not going anywhere, okay? And then blaming and judging, obviously. You know, we can't talk about, well, if you would have left him, or, you know, if you wouldn't be drinking, or those things are not helpful. Yes, there are some choices that are made, but their choices at that point were what they determined were right for them, okay? That's all we can deal with, so now we move forward, okay? And language is important. So you hear me talk about survivors a lot. We rarely talk about victims. Victims are not alive. We work with victims' families when someone has died, but we work with survivors because they are still alive and they are still talking. So think about that language. The other thing, I have a pet peeve, when you say I'm dealing with someone. No, we don't deal with someone. We deal with the car dealership. We deal with the electricity. We work with someone. It shows an equality, because I'm not better than someone. I simply have the knowledge and I'm going to impart that with them. It's very much an equal footing. So think about language when you're working with someone, because it does impact. We had an officer who thought he was doing so good, and he was so proud of himself, and he had really stepped up, and he said to someone who was filing a report, and you said something to him that provoked him? And that was how he said it, okay? It was a simple question, but it was phrased in the way that was judgmental. Shut her down. That was it. No more. And we still are not, I have no idea what happened with that case. I mean, that was that simple phrase that the officer had no idea what he did. Shut everything down for her. So language is very, very important. So you've had the conversation. it's not enough to then stop. Once you have started that conversation, you have to do other things. It can't just stop with one conversation. So support is really, really important. Avoid treating a survivor like a helpless victim, okay? A survivor is just that. They have been courageous. They have stepped out of a comfort zone. They're doing things beyond what is comfortable for them. That takes a whole lot of courage. That takes a whole lot of strength. That's what we have to celebrate with them. They are not helpless. They may not have all the knowledge that they need. They may not understand what's available to them. We can give them that information, but they're not helpless, okay? And again, we talk about healing takes time. And it's different for everybody, you know? Think about in your own lives, if you've had a loss or you've had something difficult happen. We all do things in our own pace, and that's what makes us unique, and that's okay. That's what we have to celebrate. Accept the survivor's decisions, okay? So if a survivor says, I'm not prosecuting, I don't want to do this, that's okay. That's their decision. It is superhuman to go through the court process. Some people can't do that, and that's okay. Our court system is broken. I don't know if anybody knew that. And so it's not a friendly place to be. So if someone chooses not to take that route, that's okay. That's up to them. There are other things that they can do to keep themselves safe. There's other things like protective orders, civil court that they can use. Help the survivor with plans. And when I say help them, it means, what do you think when you're talking with a survivor? You know, what do you think is your biggest safety issue? How do you think you can overcome that? It's about empowering them to take those steps. You know, if I look at someone and say, well, I can see that housing is your issue, so you're going to make this call, you're going to do this, you're going to do this. What have I just done?
You've empowered him.
You've told him what to do.
You told him what to do.
Oh, disempowered.
Yeah. I have become abusive.
Yeah, right.
I am, we jokingly call it, I'm on the wheel. You know, I am on that wheel, and I have taken away every ounce of what we have tried to instill beginning. Okay? So it's about making sure that they have say in their own life. Respect the survivor's right to tell or not tell others. Okay? This is a difficult one, especially if you know, maybe you're working with an entire family. Maybe you know that it would be helpful. If you told mom would be able to support you. Okay, well here's the thing. We don't know how mom has supported her in the past. We don't know those dynamics completely. Even if we think we know them, what happens behind closed doors rarely is what we see in the public, okay? So we have to respect their right to make those determinations. And then educate your survivor. Educate them about what's available. What are the resources available? What is domestic violence? Why does it happen in the way it does? What are some of the things to think about in terms of the power and control? You know, it's when we show that, it's you see this kind of sense of relief, like, oh my God, I'm not crazy. You know, here it is. It's all in black and white. So that education is huge. And then remind them that they're in a club now. Millions upon millions of women go through this every day. They are not alone, and there are people that are there to help them. And then learn about the available resources so you can share that. Every community is different. You know, we serve 10 counties. We have a notebook for every county that Christy is working on right now. It's very difficult to know what is available in each county, because I will tell you, Barton County seems to have a lot of stuff, but not always easily accessible. Pawnee County has very, very little, but you call one person and you will get a bunch of stuff done. So it's about understanding what your community has to offer and then understanding how to access them. And if there's problems,
will we have available to it when she gets all done?
Hers is pretty specific to us. Patty has this wonderful resource for Barton County. Now, some of our other counties we can help with in terms of what other resources are available in those communities. We've got some of that we can get out. But yeah.
We
So,
have
yeah.
a website that we put those on for
Yeah, we
different
do.
counties, and we serve some of those same ones you
Do you? Okay.
Yeah, Pawnee County and all. I mean,
Well, we have 20. We
Yeah,
28
well,
counties.
you've got all of ours. I know that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we'll. Okay. So
But Rebecca's got them listed where if you want another place for them to be.
Okay. See, and this is how we finally figure out how to do this right. Is we network. So okay, sorry. Okay. Then it's not enough to just talk. We have to act. So you've got to help the survivor identify support systems. What's available? Who do you go to that's safe? Who are the people that you can talk to? Who are the mental health folks that truly understand trauma as well as mental health? And yes, you can call us for a list of those folks. Work with the advocacy program in your area to strengthen the community responses. Okay, Patty has been on a group that we've tried to get started a couple of times called the Coordinated Community Response, and we're about to embark on that again, and I'm going to be asking for her help in that. But when we work together, and I will say that when people hear me and when I come at them saying, hey, here's a problem, let's see if we can fix this, they don't hear, let's all work together. They hear, Laura's yelling at me again. When someone else from the community says, hey, we've identified a problem and we want to see about helping to fix this, they think, oh, okay. So it's about changing who that message comes from. It's just like legislators. We do, and you all see that too in the work that you do. So it's about how do we work together to make sure the message is heard in different ways by different people. And then talk about domestic violence in the context of your work. So have you guys looked at your policies in terms of what do your policies for employees look like for domestic violence? What do your policies look like for serving clients in terms of domestic violence? Do you have anything in writing? And so it's something to think about. We do this with bigger companies to say, when you have someone who has a restraining order and maybe the person who is restrained also works in your facility, how do you address that? What are the safety measures taken? And there are things you can do, policies to put in place to do that, and we can help that. But so that's all of the kind of overarching stuff. Domestic Violence 101 very quickly. So we're going to answer questions, but I want to talk real quick. First, I want to give you these referral sources. The top number is the statewide hotline, okay, and that is answered 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. It also has, I can't remember how many languages, but it is a semi-automated line. So if you are in Hodgkin County and you call that, it will give you the option of talking with an advocate in your area or a hotline staff. And so if it's an advocate in your area, it changes, it routes the call to Hodgman, Dodge City Crisis Line, okay? And so it puts you back in contact with the program. If you simply just need information and don't want to talk to somebody in your area, you can talk to a hotline staff. So that's a wonderful resource we have. Kansas Coalition Against Sexual and Domestic Violence is our state coalition. I'm going to give you their website because it's brand new. It's really pretty. And it's kcsdv.org.
Okay, can you say it again?
K as in Kansas, csdv.org. They have a lot of really cool information as well as all the trainings that are listed for them. They do a lot of different trainings for professionals and things like that, and they're a great resource. And then you've got the Attorney General's Victim Services Office. They are within the no, it's okay. Did you know that? See, I didn't see it in there on there either, so that's not. It's my fault. Anyway,
it's different.
It's okay. No, but they also are a resource for victims in terms of understanding what's available across the state and working with law enforcement because they are the chief law enforcement office of the state. So that being said, now I want to just talk very briefly. Oh, you have my contact information too. There you go. So the other thing that I want to talk about is self-care and secondary trauma. This is a big topic that has gained momentum. There's a couple of books that I recommend, and I'm blanking on the one that it's Trauma Stewardship is the name of it, and Laura is her first name. Why I know that. But there, I will email you the title. But I think that one of the things when you work in an arena where trauma is around. So if you're working with victims, if you're working with batterers, if you're working with people in need, you will experience their trauma. It's called secondary trauma. Okay. What happens is you have the same effect as if it were your trauma. You have the restlessness, the insomnia, the I'm losing my words here for a second, just a second. The intrusive thoughts, nightmares, things like that, things that will trigger you, just like if that trauma had happened to you, because we live it with our clients. So the thing to remember is you have to take care of yourself the same way we ask our clients to take care of themselves. If you don't take care of yourself, and I'm not looking at you right now, if you don't take care of yourself,
If you don't take care of yourself,
you will become
Crazy.
crazy, yes, but you will become ineffectual. I mean, you literally, you shut down because your body can't take anymore. Stress has an amazing effect on the body. We joke about, and I've been doing this lately, we joke about, not remembering things. I talk about losing my words a lot. That's stress. When our heads are so full of all the things that we cannot do, because it's that cycle that happens in your head. Anything else that tries to go in doesn't stick. Okay, that's stress. It's not Alzheimer's. It's not craziness. It's stress. And what happens is if we don't take care of ourselves, that continues, and you have psychosomatic illnesses. You have all kinds of emotional responses that are not normal. Like, what did I do the other day? Like the other day, I basically told somebody off, which was really not appropriate, And so it's those kinds of things that you have to pay attention to. If you've done this work for a long time, you've probably cycled through secondary trauma on multiple occasions. I can tell you that I am the proud owner of a secondary, I've been diagnosed with secondary PTSD twice in my life. See? Okay, sorry. It's a thing. It's something that if you don't take care of yourself, you're not going to be able to help anybody else. So that's the important part. Yes, we always joke about do as I say, not as I do. Here's the thing I'll tell you. If you live by that, you will not be here long. Because you will not, one, be able to survive it, and two, your body will literally shut down and say, I'm done. That's what will happen, because that's what has to, your body will take care of you, I promise you. So think about ways to decompress. Think about ways to support yourself. What are your hobbies that I promise we won't take away in an exercise? What are the things that you do outside of here? What are the things that you do that don't have to do with the work you do so that you don't live it every day, And if you don't have anything, find something. Yoga is a good thing. Yoga is one of those things that is used in trauma because it talks about breathing. It's really about centering your breath and becoming very present in where you're at. Yoga is a huge, huge thing. I will bring cards here. They're called desk yoga that are not like strenuous. Okay, so I will.
We don't have to do the dog.
No, God,
no. No dog.
Yeah, no, but yeah, no.
Those sound like fun.
So think about all the things you have to do to take care of yourself, and remember this, okay? There's only one you. There is no one that can replace you. There is only someone that can move in and take over your job. So we don't want to lose you. That's the important piece. No. So okay? Think about taking care of yourself. Think about accessing the people around you. And think about how do you shut down when you need to, okay? That's an exercise that I tried. Didn't work. We're trying it again. You have to shut down. Because if you don't, what happens to you? Okay? So that's my self-care piece. So I'm going to open it up for questions.
I was wondering about your groups that you offer that are outside the center itself.
Well,
or you know,
we have a support group that meets that is predominantly domestic violence, but it really works for anybody, and that meets every Tuesday, and it's both adult women and their children. The children meet separately and do a group. We have the ability to do support groups for sexual assault adolescent survivors. But as you may imagine, with adolescents, that's kind of a floating thing. So it's kind of sometimes it happens and sometimes it doesn't.
Where do you meet with the support on that?
We meet at our administrative office.
The Main Street.
Yeah,
On
Main Street
Tuesday,
office.
what time is it?
It really is 5 to 7.
5 to 7. Okay.
But again, being a system, anyone who wants to come into group needs to do an assessment with us first. And it's a safety thing we do because we have been, abusers have tried to come in to see who all's accessing services. So we have a system that kind of screens for that. So, yeah. It's a kind of cool group. We have community help from the Ministry Against Domestic Violence. And they provide a meal every Tuesday night, so that.
And what's the name of that group from Salina that we're trying to get?
They're here.
Oh, yeah.
That's
TAPS?
no, they're a bit, but it's oh my gosh, Vera Johnson's her name. Life something start something center something.
Yeah.
Gone. I will email you that. Okay. Yeah. They do a batterers intervention group. Their group meets every Monday at St. John's Episcopal Church. So, and they're doing assessments as scheduled. So they schedule them here and come down and do them. So it's a nice thing. Any other questions? You can ask. Yes. 6 minutes. You can ask anything after the tape goes off. How's that? Any more general kind of questions? Yes, ma'am.
Can you repeat that last little thought? There's only one you, and then what was the rest of it? Can you repeat that last? I don't know. This is only one you.
Somebody
and then
can come in and take your job.
I got that part. I just didn't get the middle. I just didn't get the middle.
Oh,
I got
yeah.
only one you, and
Yeah.
then.
Somebody can't come in and replace you. They can only come in and take your job.
Okay.
You've been quoted.
Laura-isms. There's a bunch of them. You can't, staff doesn't have more power than clients because clients don't understand that they actually have power.
Mm.
That one, it's probably not said the right way that I actually said it the first time, but yeah.
Where would you like for each of us to go after this? What do you think should happen next, or after meeting? I don't know. I mean, after all the information you give us, how can we take it just today? And
here's my recommendation. My recommendation is you take the information and you look at how it fits into what you do. Mm-hmm. So how does this information impact how you would help someone within the non-food pantry? What do you want to have available to them? So that may be that you want to make sure that our brochures are around, or you may want to start having conversations. Hey, how are you feeling today? Is there, are you feeling safe in your home? Those kinds of things. It's got to be done in a very non-threatening way, and you may not get the response right away. But being open will tell people that you are a place that they can talk. And then keep learning. you need more information, yell at us. Maybe you want to come over and see what we do over there. Come, we'll give you a tour. Maybe you want to volunteer. That was the shameless plug. Call us. We are always desperate for volunteers, to do everything that we do, working with clients, the whole bit. So, I guess basically what I'm saying is I hope you take it further. So then now it's up to you.
When you talked about the need to start education with like 3 and 4-year-olds and things, is that being done on a general basis, or?
It's hit and miss. We used to be in the schools. We're no longer in the schools because their time got taken away from us.
What about Head Start or Early Ed?
We are not. There are some places across the state are. There's a program called Safe Dates that we're working on to try and get into the high schools. But it's very, very hit and miss. There's more of a concerted effort in the bigger areas because they have more funding and more resources to do those kinds of things. In our area, we're doing good just to have enough staff to provide services. So it's a need, and it's something we keep looking at. But that's that true prevention piece that's just not funded. Anybody else? Thank you all very much.